Yes, Danny is entrenched in New South Wales Origin camp, so much so that he's in for our listeners, he's in a nice sky blue hoodie. And Michael Chammas has come direct from his 3 open houses today, dressed like a real estate agent. Chammy, how'd you go?
Oh, wow. Sorry for having a funeral.
You did not. You had a function. You said you had a function, because I wouldn't have said that if you did have a passing of a known person
passing
to
of
you.
A friend. I don't have friends is more accurate. Yeah. Look, I thought I'd get a bit formal for this episode.
Yeah, well, you look totally out of place.
Play the part.
Danny, how do you feel inside Blues camp? You feel part of the place?
Well, first of all, I'm noticed that Chammy's not here, but his presence was definitely felt at the Blues Open Media Day, where he was the butt of most jokes around his drama last week. A lot of people like to take the mickey out of you, Chammy.
I think you're getting that mistaken. They're taking the mickey out of Mitchell Moses, is what you.
I think it's out of you, actually.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Mitchell handled himself very well in all the situations.
So did I on my lounge, not listening to what you were asking me. I saw Woodsy. I saw Woodsy being a pest.
He was the leader.
Yeah. Well, you know what? He's the chief Isaac Moses mouthpiece. That's why. Take that, Woodsy.
Okay, Danny, to this week. How's the camp been with New South Wales so far? Because I actually, at this time of year, feel a bit sorry for the Journos, because they get to about the halfway point of an Origin build-up and go, what the hell are we going to talk about now with that 10-day build-up? But how's the first few days been?
Well, today's the first real day, Adam. It was the return of Laurie Daly as the New South Wales coach in a real capacity. We get limited time seeing them exactly what they're doing on the field and all that sort of thing. But it was Laurie's first day back. And by his side, interestingly, is Craig Bellamy, the Storm genius. And he's got that's the coaching power structure for the Blues. So they were running the show today from what we could see. And I guess it's another new era for the Blues after Michael Maguire's time here last year. They've taken up a lot of his staff. It's largely unchanged. Obviously, I think John Cartwright's not here because he's got a job in England. I noticed that Dean Young was here. He's part of the coaching setup now as well. And there are other minor little changes here and there, but it is the new era, and it's Laurie Daly's second real crack at it. And so today we got, I guess, the big news out of today was that Payne Haas was there at training, but in front of the cameras at least, he was very much not doing anything. He was on the sideline watching, and they're going to try and give him till, I guess, Monday to move and to start running, but they're all confident he'll be okay.
Hey, Danny, last year I remember in the Freddie era we were allowed to watch training. Can you give me an update on how things are this year? Because Madge closed doors 10 minutes, then you're out the door to the point where you kicked us out of the school that they were training at.
And you went and hid in the bushes.
No comment. And has that been reinforced this year, or is it a bit more open? Is the paranoia of the ghost of Madge's paranoia still hanging around there in the Blue Mountains?
The ghost is back, baby.
He is.
It's 15. We had 15 minutes and 37 seconds of training today.
Wow.
And then we were asked to leave I think it's the Katoomba Grammar School, what it's called, and we're asked to exit the gates. And to be honest, most journos were pretty happy to go. It was quite miserable conditions in Leura today. Rain, very wet underfoot, and it was not pleasant viewing. But it was good to see it was good to see Nathan Cleary back in the side. It was great to see Max King having his run, and one of your men was there, Chammy. Adam Dewey was helping out with the Blues.
Whoa! What do you mean one of my men? Just because he's of Arab descent? Is that what you mean?
No,
he's a Tiger, your favourite club.
Why would you go down that path?
Well, what do you mean one of my men?
Don't you have a good relationship with him?
Countryman. Yeah, I'll get along with Adam, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll get along with a lot of people.
Well, I dispute that. And there are other people like Cody Ramsey was there, Jacob Preston as well.
Cody Ramsey.
Why?
Yeah.
Why are these guys in camp?
They're all part of. Well, they didn't give us an exact reason, but I imagine they're running some sort of like when they didn't have an opposed session today, so they might have needed some extra numbers to take part in that kind of play. So obviously part of the training routine, and Stephen Crichton ran well today, so there was no real drama with him. So it appears that the major issue is Payne Haas.
Danny, with what intrigues me is your earlier comment about Craig Bellamy. So
Yeah.
remember Freddie, he that last year, I think he had Ivan Cleary got involved all of a sudden out of nowhere, surprised everyone. So this was not a huge surprise. I remember when Laurie was appointed, there was talk about Craig Bellamy being involved in some capacity. So how full is this capacity? Does it go all the way up to match night and he's involved there? Because obviously Storm have got some time off at the moment, or is it just fly in, fly out?
Adam, from what I can gather, he's going to be at the majority of training sessions, which is quite a commitment from Craig, given his Melbourne role as well. He was, I think he got in late last night. He was definitely there today. I bumped into him and had a chat to him in the foyer a few minutes ago. In good spirits, wants to really help out. And look, I think he's going to be very heavily involved in, it might be too simplistic to call it coaching the coach, or that sort of role where he's helping Laurie out. And he'll, from everything I can gather, he'll be there on game night and he'll be playing an important role. And in my eyes, he's very much an ace in the pack, isn't he? I mean, to have a guy like that there who's had so much experience. And look, it's not a knock on Laurie, but he hasn't been in that environment for a long time. He's returning to the environment where, he was coach of that New South Wales team where I covered all those 8 years of Queensland glory. And, we had 1 year in 2014 where there was a bit of joy. But he was that coach. And I think that Laura and Craig was actually part of that too, where he was a losing New South Wales coach. But, a lot of things have changed then. And Craig is even more successful and even more highly regarded. And definitely a very important part of this Blues setup.
The draw works out because Melbourne have got buys around the first two Origin games, and then the third one happens, and you obviously only get two buys during Origin. You don't get all three off as a club, but that they work out, and I'm sure Craig trusts his coaching staff. His son's on the coaching staff down there in Melbourne, so if you can't trust your son, who can you trust, Danny? So we'll see how that pans out. I'll be interested to know then, obviously last year, Billy, and you want to make a point about this, about Billy's comments about who his team is being coached by at club level, and I don't know if you've linked the two about his answer, but if there's going to be a bit of to and fro between Laurie and Billy this year, given Craig is involved and Billy owes so much to Craig Bellamy for his career.
It feels at the moment like Laurie is not interested in any of that. We saw the glass houses last year and that kind of, but I can't predict what Laurie's going to say, obviously. But right now, look, the very fact that with the two of his most outspoken or maybe most controversial or potentially controversial players are on media bans indicates to me that they're not wanting to make the noise that disturbs Queensland. I think privately they know what Queensland are going to be using as motivation in this game. And a big part of their motivation is going to be the Spencer Leniu, Jonathan Thurston spat, for want of a better word. Like Jonathan Thurston is part of the Queensland coaching staff. They know that anything that Spencer would say at this time would be adding fuel to the fire, and that's why I think he's not speaking to the media. But the Blues know that Queensland forwards will be maybe shown vision of what happened or reminded of what happened, and they'll be saying, "Well, are you going to let Spencer do this to one of ours?" And you can see it's going to add to the fire of this, and it's going to be a big part of what's going on now. You think, well, maybe Queensland would have enough going on and not have to worry about that sort of thing, but this sort of stuff is used. I don't think I'm crazy to suggest that, and I think that the Blues are well and truly aware of it.
By the way, Chammy, it's the most silent he's been for 5 minutes. There's a reason for this. He's just popped outside to take a call. I think he's got that $2.2 million offer on the duplex in Drummoyne that he's trying to sell today. So we'll get back to Chammy in a moment when he comes back in the room, and we wish him well with those pursuits. It's nice to have a side hustle like that. But yeah, Ben Eichen didn't back down from it. Usually you hear it, but mate, it's clear as day that the game's got its villain next Wednesday night. You can imagine the atmosphere around that cauldron when Spencer hands the card over to the interchange, unless he starts and comes off the back fence on the kickoff. It's going to be raucous.
I'd imagine the more likely starting switch may be Max King, the rookie. He may come off the bench instead of Mitch Barnett starting. You know what I mean? Like I feel like he may be better suited to starting the game and flip it around like that rather than Spencer, who's best known for his bursts of fury, 10-minute bursts here and there, or 20-minute bursts here and there, where I think that's where he'll be best used. And they know that's an issue. And Queensland look to seize upon anything and everything. And Billy's obviously, I think he's still smarting from what happened last year with not just losing a series, but the way Michael Maguire dealt with a lot of things and used the media to his advantage in a lot of ways around that, getting into Billy's head. And Billy had a bit of a crack back the other day where he was making comment about when he was asked about the fact that the Queensland team had been doing so well. And he said, oh, well, they're not all full of Queenslanders. And he said, they're not all coached by Queenslanders. And, if that's a nice little slap at Madge. And then he brought up the fact that there's only one Bronco in the Queensland side. And, again, that's having a crack at the former New South Wales coach. So there's bad blood there. There's no doubt.
Oh, Chammy's back. Did you get the 2.2 for the Drummoyne duplex?
Listen,
did you?
I'm doing my job. I wasn't really interested in what Danny had to say out in Blue Mountain, so I thought it was a good time to go away.
It's actually some of his best stuff of the year.
What's he had? Give me a quick
just all the to and fro with Maguire and everything. Yeah, listen back to it. Guys, I wanted to touch on media bans. Mm-hmm. So Latrell, no talkies, and this is nothing new, that he's gone into camp, and I heard the story that South Sydney, along with Latrell, made the request to the New South Wales Rugby League that Latrell stay on this media ban because it's working well for him at the moment. And Spencer, New South Wales made the decision, let's not stir the pot before we get to Suncorp with Spencer and everything that happened with Thurston. You okay with players, select players going on a media ban, or do you feel sorry for the other 15 who have to front up to you guys?
I put my media hat on and I say no. As a fan, it doesn't really bother me that much. I think that it's a weird one. As a media person, I feel like the NRL should be asking all these players to talk. Now, Latrell, I get along with Latrell after last year. We have a good relationship, and when I see him, he's happy to talk. It's not like he's completely brushing the media when he sees them. He's having conversations with them, but he doesn't want to go on the record and put unnecessary pressure. It's not about, I don't even think it's about the media. It's about what the reaction does to the mindset of Latrell Mitchell. Every time he talks, he gets a lot of hate. Every time he says something, he's criticised. And that has an off-putting effect on him as a footballer. I can understand why he thinks if he doesn't talk, he doesn't get that. But on the flip side, I can understand why the NRL and the broadcasters would say, well, we pay all this money into the game, which covers your salary, and we expect. But I don't know. I'm torn. I'm genuinely torn as to, I think the players... Yeah, I am torn on this, Danny. I don't know what your view is. My role's a bit different. I'm not fussed about speaking to players as much as trying to get the info as to what's happening in the background. But for someone like Danny, who is on TV, he needs talking heads, it'll impact him more because print media, it's a lot easier. You can just ring players or ring people and get information on the phone. You don't need to have them on camera, which Danny needs to live with.
Tammy, I could sit here and blow up about it, but I don't think people really care. I don't think I agree. The general public doesn't really care that much. Would it be a great story to hear what Spencer has to say right now? And yes, it would be. It'll be interesting. But I'm not sitting here blowing up about it, saying, "Well, let's make him speak." It doesn't. The fact that he's not speaking hasn't stopped the narrative, has it?
No,
it hasn't stopped the story. Going forward and. We just ask other people about it. I don't think the players are that fussed either. I spoke to Stephen Crichton yesterday and I asked him about the impact of a media ban. And he didn't even know that those two guys weren't speaking. So the players aren't sort of kicking stones going, we've got to do 3 extra interviews because Latrell and Spencer aren't speaking. Would it be better? Yes, it would be, but the story still goes on. and off camera, in the corridors, in the foyer, I've had chats to Spencer. He's relaxed and fine. We're not talking obviously on record or anything like that. Latrell seems as happy as Larry, really polite, relaxed, smiling, handshaking, engaging, but he just doesn't see the benefit at the moment of speaking. And you ask South Sydney about it, and they say, well, try him for an interview in 2026. So I don't think it's going to end anytime soon. So,
I spoke to Blake Solly at Campbelltown on the weekend, and I got the feeling that if the NRL do come down on it, that South Sydney going to support Latrell, and if there's a fine, well, so be it.
I don't think it's looking at next Wednesday. Do you reckon the TV ratings are going to be affected by whatever happens? I get that it's part of the narrative of the build-up, but I'm with Danny. It's like, as a fan, it's like, I'd rather if it's going to help as a New South Wales fan, if it's going to help Latrell Mitchell palm off 6 Queenslanders and score 3 tries because he's in a good frame of mind and he's not worried about what people are trolling him with, never talk again, as far as I'm concerned. So,
but I can understand why people in the media or broadcasters and the executives would think, hang on a second, we pay a lot, and it's not just Latrell. We pay a lot of money and we expect good access.
Yeah.
And I'm not even talking about a media ban. The sort of things that they get, the roadblocks that media get from certain clubs.
With the broadcast,
it doesn't wash.
The broadcast are the ones tipping in the freight, and if they're being blocked by the access, but I mean, as far as broadcast goes, in terms of State of Origin, watching the TV product, the access has never been better. They're doing interviews with people basically at halftime and pre-game and full time, so it's pretty good, the whole product. Guys, what do you make of DCE? And I'm sure the same situation is in Queensland. All the players are relaxed, and it's a good camp, but DCE coming out early in the week of Origin, maybe because he thought, well, I'm outside the 4 walls of Brookvale and I don't have to talk as a Manly player, that, I'm actually talking to the Roosters and the Dolphins and bringing it up there and then. What'd you make of that, Danny?
I thought it was unusual, but nothing that Daly does is really surprised me. He's not textbook, is he? The way he did the announcement and the way he broke the news with us on 100% footy was, I haven't seen that before. So Daly rolls to the way that's him. He's just different. I would have thought that in Origin, he would have just fobbed it off like he has for the rest of the time and said, well, I'm not here to speak about that. I'm here to speak about Queensland. I'm the captain of Queensland. That's my focus. But, good luck to him. I thought it was unusual, but I've got no issue with it. But I can see why other people may be, a bit peeved as to why he's come out now. He didn't really tell us anything we didn't know, though. I mean,
yeah, I thought the Dolphins thing was a bit interesting.
No, they were the 2 clubs. I think everyone assumed it was going to be the Roosters, but they were the 2 clubs that he had interest in. Remember last year, the agent was given permission to have a look around. Well, not permission. Daly gave him permission, but he was a free agent, so he could talk to whoever he wanted. And the 2 clubs that Daly asked him to go and suss out were the Dolphins and Roosters. So nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed. It's not news to anyone in the game, but the fact that he brought it up then or was asked and answered it honestly, well,
has he done media in a long time, Danny? He hasn't been asked about it because I don't think he's done media in a long time.
Since 100%.
Has he not done post-match stuff, Chammy, around
but you know what it's like post-match. Sometimes if you're on field interview after a game, you're not going to ask about where are you going next year.
Particularly after losses, I guess, where they've had a few
losses.
Yeah.
So.
Hey, guys, I just want, before we go to a break and wrapping up Origin chat.
Good chat.
I wonder if great contribution, Chammy. But you got your commission, so that's the main thing. This is from another sport, but I want to ask you guys if anyone will get to the point of asking a question that elicits an answer like this, which is just a complete shutdown. This is big level sport. It's at its best. And Ange Postecoglou, Europa League final for Tottenham this week over there in Spain, playing against Manchester United. There was an article written in London that called him a clown, or alluded to the fact that he's going to look like a clown if they lose. And this is Ange's response to said reporter who asked him a question. Fair play to the reporter who asked him a question after that was published in the lead up to this game.
Irrespective of tomorrow, I'm not a clown. I never will be, mate. And you're really disappointed that you would use such terminology about a person who, for 26 years, without any favours from anyone, has worked his way to be in a position where he's leading out a club in a European major competition. for you to suggest that somehow us not being successful means that I'm a clown, not really sure how to answer that question.
Good on you, Ange.
But have you ever got something like that in your career, or expecting something like that when heightened emotions of an Origin week kick in?
Danny probably's got more war stories than I do. It was. I read a bit of the article. I think he said you'd be a hero or a clown depending on the result. No, I can't remember. Last year was, Danny, you gonna help me here? I can't remember being called out in a press conference like that. I think I was at one on the weekend when I asked Benji after the match about Lachlan Galvin and the board meeting on Monday. And he spoke, I do have a view, but I don't want to bring it up. And then Reedy asked a question about it. And then he said, I'm sure you'll find out like you usually do. And Happy Coruscant was sitting next to him. He was enjoying it.
I saw that. That was actually quite enjoyable. Danny, have you got one where you've been just shut down? Mainly a coach where he's been under the pump and it's like, bang, because we go back to last year's Origin and Billy Slater talking about Queenslanders being Queenslanders for the sake of being Queenslanders, and I found that a bit like, okay, he's heightened emotions and maybe it's spilled over there. But anything to bring to the table here?
Where I've been shut down, or look, not so much by a coach. I mean, not in a press conference. I've had coaches say a lot of things to me privately, and one coach once tried to shoulder charge me down a set of stairs, but that's another story. But no, not at press conferences. No.
Yeah, that seemed really personal because the reporter made it personal, and I guess that's the line that you guys have to dance along because it's professionalism and then it gets personal.
I think Andrew's perfectly fine saying that, and the reporter has to wear it because he made that reference. And and look, I think what I admire about the reporter there is at least he fronted up and faced the coach who was having a crack at. I think that
didn't call him a clown at the press conference, though. I can tell you that much. The line of questioning was a bit different.
It was a bit nicey.
Yes. Well, let's hope the people listening to this at some stage are not thinking Ange is a clown and Tottenham lift the trophy tomorrow. Well, whatever day it was.
Exactly. Anyway,
go on, Spurs.
We'll get to back to some footy chat after the break here on the Journos edition. Lachlan Galvin's on the rundown again. I can't believe it. Perth coaching update and also the Knights. Something's got to give soon, doesn't it? Here's some more Journos edition for you. And Origin will spill over here because before we get to the rest of the NRL news, it's related to NRL news as well. Selwyn Cobbo apparently open to leaving the Broncos. That's by the by, and we'll get your opinions on that. But he's not an Origin player. A bit of a surprise for you, Chammy?
Not if you're an avid reader of Danny Weidler, to be honest with you. When he reported last year that their coaching staff and Selwyn Cobbo weren't seeing eye to eye, it caused a huge drama in Origin week leading up to the final game of the series. And he was bagged for it. I think it was labelled as fake news by Billy Slater, which he's entitled to do. But we fast forward 10 months. There's an injury to Murray Taulagi. And instead of picking Selwyn Cobbo, who's been cleared of a fractured wrist, Billy Slater picks a debutant who's played 10 games in Robert Toya. And it just got me thinking back to last year and the egg that was on Danny's face, or some of the people that were trying to throw egg at Danny's face. And I look back and think perhaps the big man was on the money. And he's sitting over there in Lura at the moment. And I wonder what your thoughts are on Selwyn Cobbo's omission, because it looks as though they don't want him in the team.
Well, it's mysterious to say the least, isn't it? It doesn't. I heard you ask the question of Billy on 100% footy about it, and Billy's a great talker, but he didn't really sell me on the reason as to why he wasn't there. When you look at the fact that they have brought in an absolute rookie who's going to be a very, very good player in Robert Toy, he's going to be tremendous. They brought him in rather than maybe take a chance on seeing whether that scan was okay. Look, New South Wales are giving Payne Haas until next Monday to run. That's how highly they think of Payne Haas. They didn't even bother selecting Selwyn Cobbo. I stand by that story. I've been, absolutely had the mickey taken out of me and continue to have that happen to me, and that's no concern to me because I know it's right. And I think the fact that Selwyn's not there tells me something. I know he's fit. I've been told that there's not an injury there, so I don't think there's been a satisfactory or suitable explanation as to what's gone on. But you won't hear anyone who bagged the story suddenly change their mind. They're serious on that, and that's fair enough. And Billy can call it fake news. That's also fair enough. He's the coach, and I respect that. But I think that it's worth noting and worth asking more questions about. But it won't happen. I wouldn't imagine from the people who are sucking up to Billy on it. And there were plenty of journos.
Well, I don't think that Billy handled it wrong, to be honest. If I'm the coach of Queensland and your story comes out on the eve of the biggest game of the year, I'm shutting it down too, and I don't care if I'm lying. I'm putting egg on your face and saying that you've made it up. And
that's fair. Jamie, that's fair enough.
And the same goes with this situation. When I've asked Billy, I didn't expect him to turn around and say, yeah, Selwyn Cobbo, we don't rate him. He doesn't fit in here. He's not going to do that. No, but...
Because he might need him.
Well, he still might need, correct. And so this is not a crack at Billy. I'm just trying to say what Danny reported last year seems to be bang on the money.
Well, at rep level, guy, and you know it, especially you, Danny, you've been around these Origin camps for 20, 25 years, that at rep level especially, a coach who leaves a player out over a 3-game series, firstly, doesn't want to bag anyone because he knows he might need to backtrack and go back on his words later in the series to call that player up. But
Laurie Daly, Terrell May.
Also, but Laurie Daly with Terrell May, the true reason is never going to come out for that reason too, because they've obviously seen something in their games or their demeanour around camp which doesn't fit into how they see it going in game one, for instance. It's the same on both sides. So we don't know the full story about Terrell May. You talk to a lot of footy heads and you hear that Terrell May, with some of his numbers in some of the key aspects of being a middle, doesn't measure up, oddly enough, against the players that Laurie's selected. But they're never going to go into that, are they, Danny? Because they don't want to be seen to kicking a guy when he's already disappointed about missing out.
Adam, the way they'll do it is in both cases. In the Selwyn one, that I haven't seen any word come out of Queensland to explain anything other than he's been in better form this year than last year for a start, and he's not in the side. So that's by the by now. When it comes to Terrell May, I think you'll see carefully placed pieces of information in trusted journos' hands, and they may then explain why he's not there, even though his numbers look great to people. And I mean, 60-odd tackles a game and no misses and all that kind of thing, and 20 hit-ups, whatever. I mean, I'm not a stats man, but that you hear those stats and you go, wow, that's impressive. But there will be information fed to people in the media as to why those stats may not be what they necessarily represent to the paper. And you'll get explanations in that regard rather than straight up like a Laurie Daly or a Craig Bellamy or whoever coming out and saying, well, we didn't pick him because he was on some gaming app or Twitch, whatever the hell that is, or Switch.
Yeah.
Or whatever. What's it called?
Twitch.
I don't know.
It's like a Twitter thing.
I don't know what it is.
It reminds me of years ago when Latrell Mitchell was dropped by Freddie, I think 2018 maybe. And no one was really explaining the reason, and I actually spent my week going around to all the New South Wales coaching staff and getting examples of what the decision was based on. And we ran a story which was heavily criticised. I remember it was the most read story ever at NRL.com while I was there. It was clips and examples of the lack of urgency and commitment in Latrell Mitchell's game that led to him being dropped. At the time, we got smashed by the public for how dare we criticise the player. But isn't that what we want? We want to know why a player... Now, it's not, it's not the coach's job to humiliate him publicly, but as journos, we dug deeper and we found what it was exactly, those moments that cost him his jersey. So there was something I imagine similar maybe with Terrell May. Danny, I don't know, but it might not be in video examples, but there's a reason there. And I don't think it's just footy either, Danny, to be honest with you. I think there's a...
Yeah, I agree. Look, Chammy, you'll see, I mean, whether it's you or someone else or whoever will write something, and then it'll be the explanation will come out via a journalist rather than directly via an official or a coach. And that's just the way the media works. And, whether I think that, I'd be surprised if it was just football, put it that way. And again, I don't know. I've never sat down and talked to Terrell, mate. I've never, I don't think I've ever met him. Maybe briefly, but I mean, I don't know the character of the guy, and I only know what I read. And I think that will be part of it, but not the whole reason.
Chammy, Lachlan Galvin seems to be on your Instagram tiles that you love putting out a fair bit in the last week or so about your stories that you're writing about what may or may not happen. It looks like it's going to reach a conclusion, which we all assumed when it came out that he didn't want to be at the club, that in 2026 he won't be at the club. So have you got anything from the past week to add here?
No, well, today it's sort of Michael Carianis and Brent Reid wrote a story, and we followed it on the back of that. They may have found out we had the story coming, and they beat us to it anyway. Not filthy or anything.
You got done.
Not filthy or anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the way it's going to play out now is the Tigers want a positive outcome. They're happy for him. They're happy for him to look around, and this is smart.
Well, Richo wasn't originally, but is this the board overruling Richo?
I don't think it's the board overruling Richo. I think it's a whole series of events that's led to this situation. When Shane Richardson made the original comments, they wouldn't let him go. It hadn't blown up like it has.
Yeah.
To the point where
you knew it was going to blow up.
Well, I didn't know that it was going to get that ugly. I didn't know that Isaac Moses was going to go to Shane Richardson and say that Lachlan Galvin doesn't think he can develop under Benji Marshall.
Yep.
I assumed it would get ugly, and that's why Danny and I were critical of the way Shane Richardson handled it, because we felt as though he played into Isaac's hands. Now, I'm not defending Isaac, because he was always going to agitate to get Lockie out, and the Tigers played into his hands. Here we are in this situation. The Tigers want a positive outcome to it. The most positive outcome would have been him to play and help him play finals football. It doesn't look like that's going to happen. They want a transfer fee, and they want to make sure that Galvin and Moses and their whole camp, that legal storm in the background, goes away.
Mm.
So there's a bit of work to do before they give him that permission to leave or to negotiate with rival clubs. And that transfer fee, I got told it was an astronomical figure. It's coming down a little bit, the expectations. I don't know what it is.
What can they do with that, though? Does that go in the cap, or is that outside the cap and they can just have a great Christmas party?
I might bore you and explain it to you. So let's just hypothetically say he goes to the Bulldogs or the Eels, and they agreed, let's just say a figure, to a $300,000 transfer fee.
Hmm.
That goes into the soft cap, and the soft cap is a spending of $5.45 million. It's the footy department wages and anything they spend, strapping tape, whatever they use.
Okay.
They get $5.45 million. If you go over that, let's say they have reached that threshold, if you go over that by $300,000, you have to pay a 50% levy on the overspend. So if they go over the cap by $300,000, at the end of the year, the Eels or Dogs will have to pay $150,000 to the NRL.
On the soft cap.
On the soft,
It's like a luxury tax.
It is. So they have to pay the NRL $150. If you do it again the following year, you pay 75%. If you do it again the year after, you pay 100%.
He's a numbers man, isn't he, Danny? Yeah.
So,
I find that very interesting. I didn't know that.
No,
well, the rich clubs will be willing to pay it. Like if you get Galvin and it's going to, you might have money in the soft cap. Most clubs would, because you don't want to use you're not going to use your soft cap now. You've still got till October 31. So it's going to put a strain on their soft cap. But
does the coach's wage go in that?
All that coach's wage, the staff that he has, the meals that they eat, all that sort of stuff goes into the soft cap. Is it a huge deal? The rich clubs like the Bulldogs and Parramatta aren't going to care that they're going to have to pay $150,000. If they do, mind you, they might not. Not exactly paying the highest profile coaches in the game. Cameron Ciraldo's deal is one of the higher ones, but not the highest. And Jason Riles, you imagine, is at the lower end. So it's not going to impact on those teams. And in the salary cap, from Lachlan Galvin's point of view, he's on $250,000. So there's not going to be an argument about who chips in what. Whoever gets him, if they get him, they'll happily pay his wage. What the argument will be, if they both want him, who's going to give him an upgrade this year? Yeah. Who's got the money to give him the most this year? Because the Bulldogs might turn around and say he's $500 instead of your $250, and the Eels might say we'll give you $700 this year. That's going to be part of the negotiation.
You keep on saying the Bulldogs.
I said hypothetically.
So do you know something?
Well, you're the dog whisperer.
Well,
Danny Gould.
Don't try to put words in. I can see what you're doing over there with your hoodie and Lura, trying to manipulate the conversation to make it look like I'm going to say it's the Dogs. I'm asking you, champion, are the Dogs in or not?
Wow, champion. From everything I've been told, they're sitting back going, well, why are we being linked still? We've said we don't want him. So I don't know. I wish I could give you more information than that. Where I don't know. Do the Dogs need a 5'8"?
Where does he play is the question. I don't. It makes football-wise, it makes more sense at Parramatta, yeah. But
absolutely,
I think my gut feel, I believe what Gus said around them not being interested as of yet. But I think Lachlan Galvin would prefer to go to the Bulldogs because of his connection with Luke Vella, who's an assistant there, who is his high school teacher and one of his best friends. I think Lachlan Galvin, if all things are equal, would like to go to the Bulldogs. Does that mean the Bulldogs come with the offer that blows Parramatta out of the water? No, but you don't know. I think the Dogs, if Lachlan Galvin, and they've always said this, especially when they were looking at Mitchell Moses, they want players who want to come to the Bulldogs. And if Lachlan Galvin comes to them and says, I want to come to the Bulldogs, I find it hard to believe that they as a club don't sit down and have that conversation with him.
Chammy, so he'd have to play 13, right? Don't you think? If he was going there. And they're not going to pay him anywhere near the $1 million. Because the Bulldogs, I think, their top paid players wouldn't be on that just yet, I don't think. And we're talking about like the Stephen Crichtons and the Matt Burtons and the Viliami Kickows, those sort of guys. I don't think you can pay Lachlan Galvin, hypothetically, if he's going to go there. You can't pay Lachlan Galvin more than those guys. No. I think that would create an issue for the club. And the way that the Bulldogs are building this very tradesman-like and tough and gritty mentality, you don't want to suddenly throw $1 million salary to I don't know how old he is, 20-year-old, into the mix like that. Because I think that would be a difficult sell. You can't tell Stephen Crichton you're earning less than Lachlan Galvin. Yeah. So he'd have to go for a lot less.
And Gus made the point on the night that you guys discussed it on 100% footy that this kid, he's still in his development phase and he's not going to get – the idea is to not get top dollar until you're out of that development phase. So you couldn't imagine that the Dogs are going to break that word.
Which is why I said if he comes to them and says, I want to come to the Bulldogs and make the necessary sacrifices.
Yeah, one of them is
financial. Then I think that the Bulldogs would be interested.
Hey, Danny.
So just given the offer that the Tigers made, right? You're Mr. GM salary cap extraordinaire expert. Can the Dogs offer him that much less? Explain it to us if he's already had that big offer, or can he go for that much less?
Well, he never had an offer, did he?
So, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
He never had an offer. It was never tabled. There's no proof of it. So
that's how they'd sell it.
Well, the NRL will determine market value. Just because someone's willing to pay you 1.2 or whatever it might have been doesn't mean that is market value. And you have to remember, we are talking about a contract that was going to start in 2027. There was going to be an upgrade for this year and next, but the lucrative component of that deal would have been in 2 years' time. We're not talking about that anymore. We're talking about Lachlan Galvin apparently potentially joining a team in the next few weeks. So that money is going to be considerably less than what the Tigers were willing to pay because there's still 2 years to play out.
Hey, Danny, on the weekend you wrote an article. Comments from James Maloney talking about his former coach at the Sharks, premiership-winning coach and premiership-winning combination they were there at the Sharkies in 2016. Shane Flanagan, who, of course, on the weekend, the day that you write that article, they go up and have one of their best wins of the season, if not their best win, the Dragons away from home against an underperforming Brisbane Broncos. But James's quote, for those who missed it, when he was asked at a charity fundraising event for Pass It On Clothing about what he learnt from Shane Flanagan, Maloney, F all. I didn't learn a thing off him. So what's been the blowback in the last couple of days, Danny, since you've made this public?
I did message Shane asking him whether he was aware of the speech or the comments on stage that Jimmy made. I haven't had a reply. There's been no reply. So I'd assume he would have been aware and he doesn't want to get involved with James Maloney. And he actually said a fair bit more from what I can gather about the character of Shane Flanagan, which I couldn't print. So there's obviously do they have a reunion next year for the 2016? Will be the 10 years.
Possibly.
That'll be. I'd like to go along to that. I don't think I'll get an invite, but be nice. Remember Gal also had a fallout with Chad Townsend over something or other. So there's a bit of
Yeah, I don't think Ben Barber's going to be mates with a lot of the people who got rid of him as well. It's an
there's
interesting reunion they've got planned there.
they were a volatile team.
What would be the most awkward reunion of the last 15 to 20 years? That would be one of them. What else would there?
I'd throw in, I don't know how it ended with, Brett Stewart's back at Manly, so he's obviously got a really good relationship with DCE, but the 2011 one, I mean, the Stewart brothers and Watmo with DCE, I'm
the
sure.
05 Tigers with Sheensy, I don't think it's, maybe.
Nah, Sheen's in bench, you don't get along anymore, so.
Yeah. That's an interesting one because things were sorted, but now it doesn't seem to be as good as it once was. That's a good exercise. We'll do that another time.
I do remember Brian Fletcher catching up with his mates for his 20-year anniversary of the Roosters grand final win, and he had the weekend of his life. So that was on the other end of the scale. I reckon those boys really enjoyed themselves from I think it was 2002 grand final. Guys, Perth coaching update. Anything from? I know you're entrenched in Origin camp, Danny, but this seemingly heavily favoured option now of the Burgess-Meninga combo over in Perth. And poor old Brad Arthur, who invested in some property, is just going to have to negative gear it and rent it out.
Perth's a good market, isn't it? I think, look, the scuttle's been Meninga and Burgess.
Do you think Burgess would want to do it with Meninga, Danny? Because my mail is that I don't know if Burgess wants to wait and be the deputy for 3 or 4 years because really, whoever goes in as his understudy has to wait 4 more years. Holbrook, Burgess, do you want to wait 4 more years to be a head coach? Because we're in 25, you're not going to be coaching until 27, and you would imagine Mal wants 2 years. So 2029 is your first crack.
Yeah, I don't think Sam Burgess will be that patient, but he might have to be if he wants that job. But he's been linked to other jobs already, and there's always talk about South Sydney, whether he'd be welcome back there or not. After Wayne, there'll be other jobs come up for Sam. I don't see the gelling of Meninga. It's been sold as his super team. I don't know if I see how they gel necessarily, or how they blend that well. But I think that Sam, in his own right, will be a very good first grade coach, given more work and everything he's doing in England at the moment. Although he's not doing that well with his side at the moment, but I think that in time he'll be a good coach. Whether I don't see the connection between Meninga and Burgess. Do you see it, Chammy?
I'm more concerned about the history of these coaching duos and a takeover transition role. History would suggest it doesn't work.
Well, Wayne Bennett, Christian Wolf, how's that working?
Well, it's not like it's on fire, is it?
They're going okay, the Dolphins.
That's been one of the better ones.
Well, Jason Demetrio and Wayne Bennett didn't work that well. Benji Marshall and Tim Sheens didn't work that well. I just adds this layer of murkiness. And I'm not saying it won't work. I'm just saying history would suggest that
it looks good on paper.
You have to tread with caution, yeah. And what are the Dolphins coming now? I don't want to make a fool of myself, but they're not in the 8, are they? So let's have a look. Dolphins
14th.
are coming. 14th. Exactly.
Yeah, but they're 1 win out.
Yeah, but they're 4 from 11. They're 4 from 11. Okay. So that's not exactly what I'm not saying it won't, but what I'm telling you is I think there isn't like this super recipe to success based on having this transition. It hasn't worked in the past. Hopefully, if it is Burgess and Meninga, it does. But there's definitely reason to think that perhaps there's a risk to it.
And what's happened to Brad Arthur?
I don't think I think he'd probably be the preferred coaching option. I think he's got the runs on the board. 10 years at Parramatta. What did he make? 6 final series, 5 or 6. I'm not sure. Took him to a grand final. And I think he's got leads on the up. So I think from a pure coaching point of view, the NRL recognise that Brad's probably their best option. But they're looking at it with a different set of eyes. They think that they need to be able to sell the dream to people of Perth, and they think that Meninga and Burgess can do that better. Now, I think they all can acknowledge that probably Brad's the most credentialed coach, but maybe they're looking at this differently. Danny, what have you heard?
Well, I like Mal as a rep coach, and I like him as the Australian coach, but is it decades since he last coached at club level? It would be
more than that.
Yeah,
more than that.
Chammy was still in primary school.
More than a decade, because when did he was
No, he was 98, wasn't he? With Canberra?
06 he was coaching He began the 8 in a row, so it's been 2 or 3 decades.
Yeah, I don't think
So
it's been
that's
this millennium.
It's a big gap between, and look,
lost
we
the
talk
plot,
about
Weidler.
2 or 3.
You've actually
Sorry?
lost the plot.
I said decades.
No, don't try and add an S on it.
He
Don't
did
try
actually,
and add an S
say
on it.
decades.
I said I'm not that senile yet, Chammy. I think it was a decade ago.
Okay.
As much as you like to think.
01 is when he stopped in Canberra.
Okay.
2001.
Yeah, a couple of decades. And they talk about coaches being out of the game for 2 or 3 years, that they suddenly fall behind, or they lack the necessary skills and also the ability to deal with the generation of players they're dealing with. And I just think it's a big time gap. And I think that Mal, great as a salesman and a spokesman and a figurehead, like terrific. But I think that for nuts and bolts coaching, if he's going to be there as that, he's going to need a lot of assistance.
Guys, one last one before we go. We've the game that shapes the narrative. Well, it's going to be Origin, isn't it? Isn't it next week? We've got Warriors Raiders this weekend. That's a pretty good game, and both teams haven't lost a lot through Origin, so that's going to be well worth it. Obviously, Mitch Barnett for the Warriors not there, but geez, I've got a close look on Newcastle Penrith in Bathurst. Given the fact that where you are, Danny, there's 5 Penrith Panthers probably accumulating to about 50% of the Penrith Panthers salary cap, and they're not playing this weekend against the Newcastle, who they've finally put Jackson Hastings in an NRL number, at least 22, so he's probably not going to play, but far out it goes on up there in Newcastle. Any scuttle out of there from the last week since we last convened? Because it's the same old story.
Me, look, I haven't heard extra scuttle other than they're still not doing what they'd like to be doing. And I think it was on, what day is it today? On Monday, there were rumours sweeping Sydney that Adam O'Brien was gone as a coach, and that obviously has proved incorrect. But it was going around. I don't know if you heard it, Chammy, but it was definitely doing the rounds that he was out the door. Obviously not, and they've got a big payout in if they do decide to move him on. But that was the scuttle on Monday.
Yeah, well, thanks for watching 100% Footy, because I addressed that scuttle, but clearly you only watch yourself. Yeah, boycott. Good.
I boycotted Scuttlebutt. I watched the rest of the show. It's great.
You and many others. Listen, what I said on Monday was that Adam O'Brien is safe until the end of the year. They do not want to sack him before the season is out.
Yep.
Had you heard the rumours, Cham?
Yeah, there was a rumour that it was a board meeting on Monday, but there wasn't a board meeting on Monday from what I was told. But Adam O'Brien needs to turn it around quickly, because if they fizzle out end of the season, he'll be gone. And he's got a big payout. I think he's got a full payout of his contract, because he finished that incredible feat of finishing in the top 12 last year, guaranteed him the final couple of years.
Weirdest clause of all time, that one.
Yeah, great clause. So I spoke about what does this mean for Kalen, because there are people at Newcastle now starting to worry about Kalen's appetite to hang around, to use a word out of Shane Richardson's vocabulary. Maybe he's not in for the crocodile role.
Okay.
Kalen Ponga. Time will tell.
Danny, enjoy Origin camp. Great weekend ahead for you. Freezing you know what's off. No walking the dog or cat down at Bondi, but hey, you'll enjoy yourself up there.
Thank you. I love being in Origin camp. It's great fun.
You want me to come up playing like cards one night? It's only 45 minutes for me.
Abby?
What is it?
I don't need the hassle of you.
I'm coming.
You just cause drama for me wherever you go.
Chammy, thank you. Have a good week.
Go the Spurs.
See you, everyone.